old for somebody her age, or even younger. So what happened to her? You have any idea? We'll have the test results in a day. Dr. Red in the lab was in Nana's class, too. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say atrial fibrillation. This involves the two small upper chambers of the heart, the atria. They seem to be quivering rather than beating effectively. There's some risk of clotting. I take it she's okay to be here tonight, I said. I don't want her stubbornness to keep her out of the hospital if she needs to be there. Money isn't a consideration. Kayla Coles nodded. Alex, my opinion is that it's safe for her to be home right now. She said her sister will be coming from Maryland tomorrow. I think that's a wise precaution. Someone to help with the kids in the house. I'll help with the kids, I said. And the house. She raised an eyebrow. I believe we've already established that you work too hard. I sighed and shut my eyes for a couple of seconds. The news was finally hitting me, sinking in. Now I had to force myself to deal with it. Nana was into her 80s, and she was sick. Kayla reached out and lightly patted my arm. She's getting up there, but she's strong, and she wants to be around for a long time. That's important. Alex, Nana believes that you and the children need her. I finally managed a thin smile. Well, she's right about that. Don't let her do too much right now. Hard to keep her down. Well, tie her if you have to, Kayla Coles said. And then she laughed. I didn't. Couldn't right then. I knew a fair amount about heart disease from my days at Johns Hopkins. I would definitely keep a closer watch on Nana. What about you, Dr. Coles? What about your work schedule? Nearly 10 o'clock and you still have more house calls. She shrugged and seemed a little embarrassed by the question. I'm young, I'm strong, and I believe the people in these neighborhoods need decent, affordable health care. So that's what I'm providing, trying to. Good night, Alex. Take good care of your grandmother. Oh, I will. I promise. The road to hell, she said, paved with good intentions. She nodded and walked off the porch. Say good night to everybody for me. Dr. Coles headed down 5th Street to her final appointment of the day. Chapter 88. I did some more background work on the 3 blind mice the next day. Taped notes to my wall in the attic, but I couldn't get into it. Couldn't concentrate worth a damn. Nana's lab tests came back in the afternoon, and as Kayla Coles had promised, she called the house. The two of us had a talk on the phone after she spoke to Nana. I just wanted to thank you for your help, I said as I got on the line. I'm sorry if I was rude in our living room the other night. What makes you think you were rude? You were a little frightened is all. I don't think rude is part of your makeup. Anyway, let me tell you about your grandmother. She is suffering from atrial fibrillation, but given the options, that's not such bad news. Tell me why I should be happy about it, I said. Not happy, but the treatment is non-invasive and has a good success rate. I think we can treat her with a catheter ablation. We'll start there. She'll be able to go home the next day and hopefully be her old self in a week. When should she go in for the procedure? I asked. That's up to her. I wouldn't wait more than a couple of weeks. She sounded a little stubborn when I brought up a hospital stay. Says she's too busy. I'll talk to her, see if it helps. What do we do until then? Just baby aspirin, believe it or not. 1 81-milligram tablet a day. She also has to limit her caffeine, coffee, and tea. And Nana should avoid stress-related situations. Good luck on that one. That's it? I asked. For now, yes. Please watch the stress on her. I'll stay involved if she wants me to. I know she does. Kayla Coles laughed. Good. She's a smart woman, isn't she? We're going to make sure she sees 100. I laughed. I hope I get to see her reach 100. So, no special precautions until we go in for the procedure? No, not really. Just try not to bring too much excitement into her life. I'll do my best, I said. "You do your best, and try not to get shot," said Kayla Coles, before she hung up. Chapter 89. No way I was going to get shot staying at home, or so I believed. A couple of mornings after my conversation with Dr. Kayla Coles, I came downstairs to make breakfast for the kids. Nana was sitting at her spot at the kitchen table, a large brown mug steaming in front of her. I wagged a finger at her. "Decaffeinated," she said. "Don't start in on me, Alex." "Nope. I won't even say that you're a little touchy this morning. Sleep okay?" "Nobody my age sleeps okay. I did set up an appointment for the catheter ablation. I go in a week from today. Happy?" she asked. "Very happy," I said, then gave her a hug, which Nana returned in kind. Dr. Kayla was right. She was strong for her age. Later that morning, I had a pretty good talk with FBI Director Burns. He told me he had someone trying to track the email from Foot Soldier, but so far no luck. He asked if I'd given serious consideration about his offer to work at the Bureau. I'd been expecting the question. "I've thought about it some. My life is suddenly a little complicated. For one thing, I need to get some kind of closure on this case with the Army." "They helping or getting in the way?" "The Army," Burns asked. "A little of both. I've met some good people. Army's like everybody else, though. They want to solve their own problems. There's something incredibly nasty going on with this murder case. They know it, and so do I. I feel it in my bones. There will be more murders, that's my fear." "If I can help," Burns said. "No strings attached, Alex. This is a big case. I think it's important, too." "I appreciate that." After I got off the phone, I went in search of Nana. She was futzing around in the kitchen, as usual. Her kitchen, her house. "I need a rest. So do you," I said to her. "Where do you want to go after your procedure?" "Paris," Nana said without blinking an eye. "Then maybe Rome. Venice, of course. Florence would be real nice. Then come home through London. Stop in and see the Queen. What do you think? Sound too rich for your blood?" "Maybe you were thinking of a train ride to Baltimore," she asked, and laughed at her own joke. She was a funny lady, always had been. "I have some money put away," I told her. "Me too," she said. "Mad money. What about Jamila? What about your job?" "If Jamila could take some time off, that would be great. She likes her job, though." "That sounds familiar, doesn't it? How's your marble collection? Maybe you should buy a couple of jars for her." I laughed. Then I went over and put my arms around Nana again. Couldn't help myself lately. "I love you, old woman," I said. "I don't tell you that enough, and when I do, it isn't with the passion I feel." "That's nice to hear," she said. "You can be so sweet sometimes. I love you too, and I always say it with the passion that I feel." "You feeling all right?" I asked. "Today's good. Tomorrow, who knows?" She shrugged. "I'm making some lunch. Don't ask if you can help. I am fine. Still on the right side of the grass." After lunch, I went upstairs to my office in the attic to think about what my next steps should be. There was a fax waiting. I wagged my finger at it. It was a copy of a news story in the Miami Herald. I read about the execution the night before of a man named Tichter at the Florida State Prison in Stark. Abraham Tichter had been in Vietnam, Special Forces. Scrawled at the bottom of the fax was the following:
"Innocent of these murders in Florida. Wrongfully accused, convicted, and executed. Abraham Tichter makes 6, in case you aren't keeping count. Foot Soldier."
I was keeping count. Chapter 90. Ever since Nana had been under the weather, I'd been doing the grocery shopping and most of the household chores. Usually I took little Alex with me to the small Safeway on 4th Street. That's what I did early in the afternoon. I carried him high on my shoulders, out the kitchen door and down the driveway to my car. Alex was giggling and yapping, as he always is. The boy never shuts up or sits still. He's a bouncing ball of pure energy, and I can't get enough of him. I was absently thinking about the last message from Foot Soldier, so I don't even know why I happened to notice the black Jeep traveling down 5th. It was moving at around 30, right about the speed limit. I don't know why I paid it much attention, but I did. My eyes never left it as it came toward little Alex and me. Suddenly, the barrel of a black Tech protruded through the side window of the Jeep. I pulled down the baby, then dropped to the ground, whipping my body sideways to avoid landing on Alex. The shooting started. Pop, 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 pop. I bellied across the lawn, shielding my baby under my left arm, and then dragged him behind a shade tree. I needed cover between us and the gunman. I didn't get a good look inside the Jeep, but I did see that the driver and the shooter were white. 2 of them, not 3. I couldn't tell if they were the men from Rocky Mount. Who else could it be, though? The shooters from West Point? Were they the same? What was happening now on 5th Street? Who had ordered it? Pop, 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 pop. Bullets cracked into the walls of the house, and a front window shattered. I had to stop the attack somehow. But how? I crawled to the porch and made it just before another round of fire. Pop, 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 pop. Unbelievable, even for Southeast. I pushed Alex down behind the porch. He was screaming bloody murder now. Poor frightened little boy. I kept him down on the ground, then lifted my head and got a quick peek at the Jeep stopped in front of my house. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, 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 pop. I returned fire. 3 carefully aimed shots, so as not to hit someone in the neighborhood. Then 2 more shots. Yes! I knew that I got the shooter. Possibly in the chest, but maybe the throat. I saw him jerk back hard and then slump over the seat. No more shots came. Suddenly, the Jeep took off, tires screeching, shimmying as it skidded around the nearest corner. I carried Alex inside and herded Nana and the baby into her room. I made them stay down on the floor. Then I called Samson, and he was at the house in minutes. I was just about past being shocked and afraid for my family when I became as angry as I'd ever been. My body shook with rage and the need for retaliation. A lot of broken windows, some bullet holes in the walls. Nobody hurt, Samson said after a quick walk around the house. It was a warning. Otherwise, I think they would have killed me. They came to the house to deliver a message, just like when we went to Starkey's house in Rocky Mount. Chapter 91. It was just past 4 in the morning when Thomas Starkey waltzed out of the kitchen door of his home. He walked across a dewy patch of lawn, then climbed into his blue Suburban. It started right up. Starkey always kept it in perfect condition, even serviced it himself. "I'd like to take a few pot shots at the fucker right now," Samson said at my side. We were parked in deep shadows at the end of the street. Blow out a few windows in his house. Spread a little terror his way. "Hold that thought," I said. A few minutes later, the Suburban stopped and picked up Warren Griffin, who lived nearby in Greystone. It drove on to Nob Hill and picked up Brownlee Harris. Then the Suburban sped out of Rocky Mount on US 64, headed in the direction of Raleigh. "None of them look shot up," Samson said. "That's too bad. So who'd you shoot on 5th Street? "I have no idea. Complicates things, though, doesn't it? These 3 know something, though. They're in this conspiracy we've been hearing about. The silent gray wall? That's the one. Seems to work pretty well, too." I didn't have to follow too closely, didn't even have to keep the Suburban in sight. Earlier that morning, about 3 o'clock, I'd slapped a radio direction finding device under the vehicle. Ron Burns was helping me in any way he could. I'd told him about the shooting at my house. I kept a good distance behind the killers. The Suburban stayed on US 64 past Zebulon, then I-40 to 85 south. We went by Burlington, Greensboro, Charlotte, Gastonia, and then entered South Carolina. Sampson sat beside me on the front seat, but he'd fallen asleep before we got to South Carolina. He had worked a shift the day before, and he was exhausted.